Let's start with my financial disclosure. I received in 2011 research funds from Pfizer, and I have no financial relationship with manufacturers, distributors, or retailers of electronic cigarettes or any tobacco industry. So I was asked to talk about the safety of nicotine and the safety of tobacco and the safety of electronic cigarette. And I want to start with the safety of the tobacco product. And we know that this is the most dangerous product. There's nothing safe about smoking cigarettes. And this is our comparator for talking about the safety of electronic cigarettes, and when I will be talking about the safety of the device, and I will be talking about the safety of nicotine, I will refer to the tobacco products. So we need to say it clear, and we need to repeat it. This is tobacco, not nicotine, that is responsible for the most of the adverse effect of smoking, if not all of them. The main adverse effect of nicotine is the addiction itself, which sustains tobacco use. So because most smokers are nicotine dependent, so they continue to expose themselves to toxicants from tobacco, and of course the nicotine. And I borrowed this picture from and the quotes from actually tobacco industry. So as Dr. Fagerstrom showed, that the continuum of the addictiveness of the different product, there is also the hypothesis that there is the same relationship of the continuum of the risk of the different products. And the harm reduction strategy is to switch smoker from the very dangerous product, which are tobacco cigarettes, to some kind of safer alternatives. But what is very important, even tobacco industry acknowledge that this is not to say that the alternative behavior, alternative product does not pose some risk, but this behavior poses less risk. And the main question right now about the electronic cigarette, how negligible this risk is, if it is any risk at all. My research and the other researchers are trying to answer the question, what is the magnitude of the difference between the risk of tobacco cigarettes and electronic cigarettes, and what is the absolute risk of electronic cigarette, if there is any at all. So, of course, there are some principles and some main assumptions behind the statement that electronic cigarettes are safer than tobacco cigarettes. First of all, there is no combustion, and nothing is burned in electronic cigarette, and we know that most of the toxins in tobacco smoke are generated during the combustion process. When the temperature during the pass hits the really high peak, almost 1000 centigrades, and tobacco is burned, and a mixture of chemicals is generated. So in electronic cigarettes, we don't have this process. There is no physical combustion inside. But what is also very important, and we need to say it very clearly, this is compared to smokeless. We hear about the snus. There is no tobacco in electronic cigarettes. So there is a nicotine which was taken from the tobacco. That's why the product in many countries is classified as a tobacco product. But there is no tobacco in electronic cigarettes. That's why there is this assumption that electronic cigarette must be safer than tobacco cigarettes. So the principal question is, are electronic cigarettes safe? It means they pose no risk at all, or they are just safer than tobacco cigarettes. And it's a funny story, because when I go when I give the talk on like smoking cessation specialists or especially with public health, they don't like word safer, because it means that you have safe product and you have safer, so the cigarettes are safe and electronic cigarettes are safer. So they use the term less harmful. So, but the question is, are they safe or safer than tobacco cigarettes? And first, let me explain, and I'm sure that for many of you, this is you are familiar with these differences. But we have an absolute risk, and we have a relative risk. So the absolute risk is a risk of developing the disease, for example, the disease over the time. And everyone, non-smokers, smokers, e-cig users, will have some risk of developing heart disease over their lifetime. And for example, non-smokers might have a 10% of the risk of developing certain disease, while smokers will have the absolute risk higher, of 40%. What is the risk of e-cig users? Is it somewhere between non-smokers and smokers, or is it exactly the same as non-smokers? This is a very important question. But we also have a relative risk. So this is the risk when you compare two groups. We can compare smokers with e-cig users. We can compare e-cig users with non-smokers. And then the one of the group will serve as a comparator to the other one. So this is the relative risk. So we can phrase the question: do electronic cigarette users have a higher risk of developing heart disease than non-smokers? And finally, we have also the theoretical risk and documented risk. So the theoretical risk is the review of all theoretical possibilities. We usually take into account all the laboratory data or the animal studies, and we make some conclusion. We put some hypothesis that something may happen. And for example, the nicotine in electronic cigarette is poisonous, so the children can overdose it and die. This is the theoretical risk, and this may happen. But on the other hand, we have a documented risk. So something that we really measure and we can observe in a real situation. And for example, in terms of the poisoning, I am aware of only one case of children dying, the kid dying of the overdosing nicotine from electronic cigarette, though this case was described by the local newspaper in Israel, so it's really hard for us scientists to comment on this case. And then we have the problem how to monitor and manage the documented risk and the real risk. So, of course, electronic cigarettes are nicotine delivery devices. They contain nicotine, some not, but this is negligible fraction of the market. And we also know that there are different brands. They differ in the nicotine content. They differ in the nicotine delivery. The newer generation can deliver higher doses of nicotine, but we have a solid data, and we know, we are sure that these products contain nicotine and can deliver nicotine. So when we are talking about the smoking and the risk of smoking, the main problem always in the interviews and is a cancer risk. But we need to remember that the significant problem, and most smokers suffer from cardiovascular disease, actually, not from the cancer. So I will start with the cardiovascular risk of nicotine. And nicotine affects the cardiovascular system, and some researchers claim that some cardiotoxic effects of smoking may be attributable to nicotine. For sure, nicotine increases heart rate and blood pressure and vasoconstriction, and nicotine may contribute to endothelial dysfunctions, so that's how our vessels work. And nicotine may contribute to the development of resistance to insulin in glucose intolerance and aggravation of diabetes. So what we know is it would have some implication for electronic cigarette for some group of the users. So we have to be careful about using electronic cigarette in the patients with diabetes. We have to be careful about the patients with existing cardiovascular conditions. However, again, I would compare to the tobacco smoking and what we know about the tobacco smoking, and nicotine is not considered a significant risk factor for cardiovascular events. And benefits of nicotine replacement therapies are clear, and nicotine replacement therapies are many guides recommended to use even in the people with cardiovascular diseases. What about the cancer? So we need to, there is some misperception about the nicotine, and when I speak sometimes with the users or the people who are using nicotine replacement therapy, some people believe that nicotine causes cancer. And there is no evidence or very limited evidence. It was not confirmed that nicotine can cause the cancer. It's getting more complicated with the existing tumor cells. So nicotine can affect the existing tumors. But we know about the safety of nicotine replacement therapies. So the review of the different randomized trials, then randomized smokers either to nicotine replacement therapies and the placebo, and they follow these are the trials then that when the smokers use nicotine replacement therapies for a relatively long time, and there is no differences in a risk in a placebo group versus the smokers who use the nicotine replacement therapy. Just briefly about the safety of the nicotine in pregnancy, very controversial topic, and I know that some even some researchers have difficulties what to advise. And again, when comparing with the smoking, if we can provide some safer form of nicotine delivery, it might be beneficial. So there is a general consensus that nicotine replacement therapy is less harmful in a pregnancy. I have still a few minutes. Okay, 1 minute. So I want to finish with the topic that is sometimes raised, the danger of poisoning of the nicotine. I think that there are many users here, and the users they titrate the nicotine dose, and it's very unlikely that users will overdose nicotine. We are also talking about the risk of overdosing by kids when the kids can drink e-liquid or expose themselves through skin. And it may happen. There is a theoretical risk. In states, when I work right now, we have this system for monitoring each case of the poisoning, and there was the news talk about the increasing number of the poisoning from electronic cigarettes, and of course because the product is getting more and more popular, so we are increasing the risk that some situation might happen in a real world. And I want to finish. Professor Polosa had a talk about the chemistry and toxicants in a vapor. Please remember, when we are talking about the safety of electronic cigarettes, it's not about this. It's not only about the nicotine. There are other chemicals. It's not just the nicotine. There are other chemicals that can pose some risk. Thank you so much.